else who would like to have this information, again, we'll be happy to share that those links with you. Okay. All right. So let's start with just a general overview of PAsmart. So what is PAsmart? PAsmart is an initiative that just started this year. Governor Wolf proposed the initiative as a new strategic approach to education and workforce development. The initiative is designed to address the feedback that Pennsylvanians shared with the Middle Class Task Force last fall. And the goal is to better align education, workforce, and economic development initiatives and funding. By working in a smarter, more coordinated way, PAsmart is intended to make public programs and initiatives more accessible and easier to navigate, so Pennsylvanians can develop the skills and abilities they need to obtain quality jobs, and businesses can recruit and retain skilled workers. On the slide, you'll see that PAsmart, again, is a new strategic approach to education and workforce development. And we're doing this by investing in initiatives to support economic growth, education, and training opportunities, strategic coordination and alignment of public programs, services, and funding. We want to transform interagency, cross-sector collaboration to enhance resources. And the goal is to create better outcomes for our students, workers, businesses, and communities. As part of the PAsmart initiative, the 2018 state enacted budget included more than $30 million for strategic, competitive, and cross-sector investments focused on meeting the education and workforce development needs of students, workers, employers, and communities across Pennsylvania, including those disconnected from education and workforce. Funding will support a variety of projects, but should be data-driven, align with and leverage existing initiatives and resources, and lead to a measurable impact. On your screen, you'll see how the PA grant funding has been distributed to state agencies. PDE received $20 million to support workforce development opportunities that include computer science and STEM education. Then we have $7 million that has been distributed for apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships through the Department of Labor and Industry, and nearly additional $5 million that the PA Department of Labor and Industry received for next generation industry partnerships. If you would like more information on any of these PAsmart grant initiatives, please visit the website on your screen. So, as I mentioned, the Pennsylvania Department of Education is the agency that has been tasked with distributing the grant money that pertains to computer science and STEM education. And the purpose of these programs is to address the larger gaps in computer science and STEM offerings across the state and expand access and equity of access by providing more computer science and STEM education experiences to students. So the way that this is being done is that there are two different grant opportunities available. The first are called the targeted grants, and these are structured to meet the needs of local education agencies and their schools that have zero or very few computer science offerings of any kind. These grants have a low risk entry point for applicants and are intended to help applicants build the infrastructure to apply for advancing grants in the future. On the other side then, we have advancing grants, which are high-level comprehensive grants meant to support entities that have 50 or more students participating in computer science and STEM experiences. The purpose of advancing grants is to give regions a chance to leverage or expand computer science and STEM ecosystems. So today we're going to be talking specifically about the targeted grants. And I will mention quickly that just a little bit ago, we had a similar webinar for folks who are interested in the advancing grants. That, just like this webinar, was recorded and will be posted online in the upcoming days. So targeted grants. As we mentioned, targeted grants are intended to help LEAs with zero or very few computer science offerings get started with introducing these types of programs or offerings in their school. The grants are divided into two phases. So even though you'll be submitting one application, there will be two parts. The first part is phase one. For phase one, we are asking that LEAs identify teams of educators, which mean at least 4 educators, to attend professional development during the spring or summer of 2019. This professional development is intended to help them learn how to incorporate computer science standards into their classrooms. Then for phase 2, we will have, and this is following this training, we will allow LEAs to apply or request additional funding to purchase supports and additional professional development so that their educators can actually implement what they've learned and offer regular computer science programming in the schools. So who is eligible to apply? So for the targeted grants, only LEAs are eligible to apply for this funding. An LEA is defined as a school district, a charter school, an intermediate unit, or a career technical center. Only one application may be submitted per LEA. However, the application may include educators from more than one school within the LEA. So for instance, if you wanted to have a team of educators where maybe one teacher is from an elementary school, one is from a middle school, one is from a high school, and maybe the 4th person is an administrator, that would be an acceptable team. All 4 educators do not have to come from one school. We are suggesting that you select the team members that can increase your ability to provide computer science offerings in your schools and to increase access, specifically to underrepresented and or historically underrepresented students. So what is in the current application? The current application is, and we say it's intended for phase 1. However, to be considered for any of the phases, this is the application that you will need to submit. And the way that it is written, it is intended to be accessible to LEAs without the need for a grant writer. Also, we're asking for educators with no computer science experience to apply because, again, the entire program is designed to provide that introductory professional development to those educators. Because of the way that the application is designed, we think that it will probably only take you about 30 minutes to complete. Part of the application process is that you will be required to provide the current status of computer science programming or course offerings in your school. So we just want to have an overview of at what level are you offering computer science currently. We would need to know who your team members are, as well as what their availability is for this type of these different types of professional development, and then confirm that all educators will agree to implement computer science programming immediately after training. And what we mean by that is if the training is occurring in the spring and summer, there would be an expectation that these educators then would be implementing what they learned beginning in the 2019-20 school year. So as with any application, it's always nice if you can have a little checklist or you have a starting point. And so what we recommend is that before you even start filling out the application, identify your teams of educators. As I said, all educators from all grades, K to 12, are welcome, and no previous computer science experience is required. Consider what type of professional development team members are needed. If you're considering an alternative provider, you'll need to collect information about the provider offerings and make sure that they meet PDE's professional development criteria. You'll notice we're going to be talking about professional development in a little bit, but we have a pre-approved list of professional development opportunities. That's what this is referring to, though, is you may select from those opportunities, or you would be able to propose an alternative provider that may meet your needs. And then finally, decide which dates work best for the team to attend the workshop. You will be asked to provide a date range in the application. Ask your school administrator, so this could be a principal, a superintendent, for a signed letter of support stating they will provide release time for you and the other educators to meet the obligations of this grant. Or do one better, get your administrator to attend too. You can review relevant grant information at the website on your screen, and then start drafting your application based on the questions. Because you can only submit the application once, we highly recommend that you draft your answers in a separate document and then copy and paste into the application portal. So I was mentioning about the different professional development options. You will see 4 different options here on your screen. Code.org, Apple Everyone Can Code, CS First, Beauty and Joy of Computing. These are all available through PDE and the 2 intermediate units in Pittsburgh and out towards Philadelphia. You are welcome to participate in these workshops at no cost, or as we mentioned, you also can propose alternative programming, and we do provide a criteria for what that programming would need to meet in order for it to qualify and be approved by PDE. But these links here on your screen, as well as the links in the request for proposals, can take you to the websites for these different organizations and these different types of professional development. So if you wanted to take a look and figure out what type of professional development your educators would be interested in, it would be highly advised so that you can select the appropriate training in advance. As I mentioned, you can propose alternative computer science workshops. In order to do this, you would need to fill out a separate form and then upload it as part of your application. Alternative workshops approved for grant funding must meet criteria in the following categories: access and equity of access, training capacity, and content. And again, more information is in the appendix of the request for proposal. So what funding is available? LEAs may receive a maximum of $35,000 of targeted grant funding. Up to $10,500 can be used to support educators who are participating in the computer science training. That funding could be used to cover staff time to participate in grant activities, reimbursement costs incurred for the participation and replacement for educators, as well as certification exams if applicable. Up to $24,500 may be used to purchase eligible hardware, products, and additional training to implement computer science education in the classroom. Priorities. Funding priorities for the targeted grants are as follows. We'll be looking for proposals that demonstrate the greatest ability to increase access and equity to computer science and STEM education. Proposals should present, or we'll also be looking, to present the highest need for computer science STEM programming. There would be a focus on training and professional development for teachers in grades K to 8 so that we can support early awareness of computer science and STEM in our schools. And priority consideration also will be given to teams of educators from diverse grade levels and or that include at least one administrator from the LEA. So that was a quick overview of the targeted grant program. If you have questions, we'll take a moment here. Please feel free to enter them in the chat. We also are bringing up our screen right now so that we can see what those questions are and we can hopefully answer them for you live. Okay, so we'll start with the easiest question first. Will slides be sent to us? Yes, we can see that everyone receives the slide deck as well as a link to where the recorded webinar is. Okay, let's see what we have here. It's the maximum amount applicable to both phase 1 and phase 2. The maximum amount of $35,000 is a combination of phase 1 and 2. Okay. Is the funding only for 4 teachers or can it be more? You may propose more than 4 teachers, however it works to, in your district or in your LEA. However, we are looking for teams that include at least 4 educators. Can grant funds be used to provide teachers with stipends? Yes. Stipends are an acceptable expense and would come out of that $10,500 maximum award. Diane, say, I saw that $2,600 per educator was available for training costs. Is that in addition to the $35,000? Trying to remember where that would have been written, so I apologize for stuttering here a little bit. But the $35,000 is the maximum. I'll look into that a little bit closer, Diane, and we'll get back to you or add it to our FAQs just to make sure, just so that everyone's clear. However, the $35,000 is the maximum total award that any one LEA can receive for the targeted grant. Oh, I see. Thank you, Matthew. So you were saying the 4 teachers into the $10,500. So we put a $10,500 limit on it because we know that some of the trainings, for folks who are maybe in the middle part or in the central part of the state, travel to any of these different locations may have a higher cost. And so again, what we're thinking is that, some schools will need less travel funding and some will need more. So that's why we cap those expenses at $10,500. Okay, but the total maximum award is $35,000. So if any of those costs were to exceed $10,500, that would have to have special approval from PDE, but it would count against the $35,000 total grant. Okay. Yeah, okay, so Jeanette asked about the dates for summer trainings for code.org workshops. We actually, we wanted to get the application in everyone's hands as quickly as possible. So we are still working with IU3 and Delaware County IU to confirm those dates, but we agree. We certainly want you to have those, the dates and times as soon as possible so that people can prepare. And we will try to get that available or get that out to you, as soon as we can. In the meantime, you may want to look at their website and see when some of those trainings are already scheduled. But you're correct; those are the trainings that we are tapping into. Can we send a tech coach that does not have a teaching certificate? We did not put any stipulations on the on what an educator is or how we define an educator. However, please again remember that the intent here is that we are expanding access in the classroom, and just make sure that you are identifying individuals who are able to do that. Okay. If a school has more than 50 students at the high school level, but no computer science programming at elementary, can they still apply for the targeted? Yes, that you can still apply. Rita was asking about, do the costs for the 4 PDE-sponsored professional development individuals come from the grant? So again, the cost of the professional development would be covered by, if those team members go to training that is already being provided through PDE, that would not count against the $35,000 total grant. But the additional money for travel or for stipends or to cover some other administrative costs related to the educators being able to attend that professional development would count against the total grant. Can professional development funds be used to pay for hotels and other travel expenses? Yes, Yvonne, that it can. Okay. So Jeanette, that's a good question, because I know the phase 1 and phase 2 has been a little confusing for folks. So everyone who would be interested in either phase 1 or phase 2 is applying right now. Okay, you would want to apply by December 14th. You're applying for phase 1, but it's only because for phase 1 we are determining who can go through, or funding that's available to send folks through the professional development. If after that professional development is complete, then the LEA will have the opportunity to identify how they want to spend the other part of the grant funding. And the thought behind this is that it's not until you go through the training that you really understand, or maybe even know, how you intend to integrate the computer science learning into your classroom. And so we want to give folks time to kind of figure that out and see what hardware, software, and other resources are available that they may want to use for the upcoming school year. Heather is asking about Is using the free computer science training, can the $10,500 be used for classroom coaching? And actually it cannot. You could use the phase 2 pot of money to help pay for classroom coaching, but the $10,500 set aside would not be for that purpose. Robert is asking whether a grant could be used to start a vocational course that serves multiple districts. Yes, it possibly could. I think, Robert, you're from a career tech center, if I remember correctly. And that would be, certainly, if you wanted to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you would be able to send folks to this type of course or receive the professional development and then use some of the funding to start such a course. That certainly, thank you, Robert, at the IU. You certainly could do that. I would also remind you too that, you know, if by chance, and I don't know how many courses or if you're thinking on a grander scale, but in addition, if you wanted to partner with others, you may even want to be thinking about applying for an advancing grant. And yes, Mary, hardware can be purchased as well. That, again, would be part of the phase 2 funding. So hardware, software, other computer science educational resources. So Matthew, that's a really good question. He's asking if the application and award is $10,500 for team training, what happens if the actual expenses are less? So he's saying it's hard to know the anticipated cost at this time without the schedule of training. And that's actually why for the targeted grants, we did not ask for a budget right up front. We realized this is going to require a little bit more legwork on PDE's part, but we first wanted to get an idea of how many schools and folks were even interested in taking advantage of this opportunity. And then we're going to try to schedule, you know, again, not only the professional development, but other types of trainings, either regionally or figure out the best way to maximize those dollars. Now, that being said, if you don't use the full $10,500, then that funding could be then put towards, again, hardware, software, other types of professional development. Okay, so again, you can ask for up to, or the full request would be a maximum of $35,000. Can an IU in the center part of the state have a code.org trainer come in to support local districts? That is probably a possibility. Let me, we actually reach out and talk with code.org quite often. I don't want to speak for them or the other IUs that have been you know, partners with code.org, but I will get back to you on that. Let me just do a little digging, okay? But it's a good idea to try to have maybe some regional you know, opportunities. But again, it'll be really helpful to see exactly who's applying first. And yes, and now, Tamara, good question. An LEA can apply for both a targeted and an advancing grant at the same time for different schools. Okay. All right, I feel like we might be missing. So how comprehensive is the PDE IU training and how many days? So the training, well, yeah. So trainings actually typically are about 5 days in length. It really just, again, depends on who the provider is and how extensive it is. Some of the programs are, again, intense for a short period of time. I'm going to just say maybe 1 week, and then there would be follow-up sessions during the school year. But again, I would really encourage you to go to the different websites and do some research on the different opportunities and see what works best for your team. Whenever you're identifying, and I know that we're kind of, again, it's a short turnaround. So Aditya just reminded me too that whenever you're applying, if you're not sure exactly which type of training that you want to participate in, feel free to list or indicate all the different trainings that you are interested in. And then there is a place where you can also put in the narrative that maybe, or you could do a follow-up email, just let it kind of explain like what you're thinking is along those lines, and we'll do our best to meet your needs. Okay, I'm looking, Jeanette. So could we send one team member to like CS fundamentals, 2 to CS discovery, 1 to CS principles, or do we need to send the team to all to, or a 4 to one of these? No, you do not have to send everybody to the exact same workshop. What we're trying to do here is really get exposure to computer science in as many grade levels as possible. And for that reason, as you I think are saying here, Jeanette, it may not make sense for all of your educators to learn the same thing or be in the same class. It's perfectly acceptable to select the types of training that meets each educator's individual needs and will allow you to increase access in the schools that they serve. And what degree of computer science implementation is expected in the 2019-2020 school year once the grants are awarded?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll go ahead and
Oh, you're good.
So to what degree is CS implementation expected? So after the workshop, we would like you to implement sort of regularly offered computer science programming. So what that means is whether it is a standalone course or content that is woven into your current curricular offerings, say in the earlier grades, that it should be regularly offered, so about 8 times a year as kind of like a cohesive program, and should be able to serve like at least 20 students per educator.
And again, we're really looking at commitment, you know, that we want to invest in our schools so that this is an ongoing commitment and that it's sustainable. And one of the questions here is about, is it imperative that the grant is focused, Stephanie, it's how imperative is it that the grant is focused on K-8? Priority will go to schools that have some type of K-8 educator or educators involved in this, because again, for the lower grades, we're able to introduce students earlier to computer science, and we believe that this is really critical in developing an interest in computer science and just laying that foundation for what these students are going to need as they go through the higher levels and eventually into the workforce and post-secondary education. However, it does not mean that you have to focus on K-8, okay? Just be aware that that is a priority area. And as far as the process for accessing phase 2, right now we're focused on finding out who's interested and getting folks signed up for their different types of professional development. Then once all the educators who have been identified for an LEA complete phase 1, then PDE, as part of the award process, will explain how you would apply for the phase 2 funding. So it's not something that you would have to worry about right now. It would be a decision that would be made after those, after the professional development is complete. So this is a good question, Eric. Whoops, I may have just jumped up. I think it was Marissa. She's asking about the grant guidelines. Yes, there are grant guidelines. It's the request for applications or request for proposals, as we often call it. And we can see or make sure that you get a copy of that. It's also posted on the governor's website, and you can get to it through a link here in the presentation as well. And Eric, excellent question. A PDF of the grant questions will be made available. We are in the process of compiling FAQs, and we've been already receiving questions over the last couple of weeks ever since the request was released. If anyone does have questions, you may submit them at any time to PAsmart, PASMART @pa.gov. Aditya's just about to submit or just sent that out to everybody so that you have the link. And again, we have FAQs that will be posted today, and then we'll be updating those regularly. Okay. I'm looking here. So Matthew, you're talking about the master teacher or fellowship model. That actually is a funding priority in the advancing grant, not the targeted grant. And a fellowship model or a master teacher, again, would be someone who is an expert at computer science, would be able to coach and assist other educators in integrating computer science and STEM into their classroom. but what you're referring to is a project or a eligible funding priority for the advancing grant.
And Eric, about the, yes, for the grant application itself, along with the FAQs, we are currently in the process of putting up the, like sort of a PDF version of the grant application itself, so you can see all the questions ahead of time. It hasn't been done yet, but that will go out as soon as it's up. Yeah. So yeah, we can send that out.
And we're in the process of posting a lot of documents every couple of days just to keep up. I know our colleagues at the Department of Labor and Industry are doing the same. So again, just keep checking back, but we will certainly try to get all that information to you in short order. Okay. All right. Okay, so as we said, the deadline for applying for the targeted grants is Friday, December 14th. The goal here was to try to make this as simple and painless as possible so that we can gauge interest and make sure that folks really have, this opportunity without meeting a grant writer and can kind of throw their hats in the ring, and we can get this, try to expand computer science education specifically as quickly as possible, and certainly by this coming or next school year. So this webinar, as well as the advancing webinar and PowerPoint, are recorded and certainly will be posted here in the next day or so. The recorded webinars will be on PDE's YouTube channel. We also encourage you to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, because sometimes that's one of the easier ways for us to get links to you in very quickly, as opposed to having to search the website. And again, we have, thank you, Eric. I see that you also posted the PAsmart grant page for everybody. That is the page where all of our documents are being loaded and posted at this time. The goal is to have all of the grant awards, at least, or the recipients, to be announced by the end of January. Okay, so I know, pretty tight time, turnaround. I was joking with Aditya. I said, I guess we know what we'll be doing over our holiday.
Yeah.
But
and that, having said, like, speaking to the turnaround, I really do want to emphasize before we head off that this application is honestly meant to be very accessible to schools who do not have grant writers, LEAs who do not have grant writers, and also LEAs that currently have very limited or no TS offerings right now. So we really did work hard to do that. So please do not be afraid to apply. So please don't be afraid to apply. We really look forward to reading those. And we are hoping that the application is sort of like within about 38 minutes for you to complete.
Take long to complete.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that a few more questions have been coming through. We'll wrap it up. We'll make sure that we, again, review all of the questions that have been submitted and incorporate those into the FAQs. So check back in a day, and we'll hopefully have that up for you. If you have, any other questions, let us know. And have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.